Okay, so I want to discuss a little bit of astrology. Please go to my blogs at galacticshamanastrologers.net. And what we have in the sky right now is a square with the nodes, the north node being in Gemini right at Rigel today. So we have Rigel is kind of like the malevolent energies in the Orion star constellation. And that is square to Atlantis, number 1198, which happens to be moving retrograde. Since December, we've had this square with Atlantis, but what's amazing to me as I watch this, and I don't have the ephemeris for Atlantis, but Atlantis is retrograde and the nodes move retrograde. So it's amazing that this square to Atlantis, 16-degree Gemini North Node, 16-degree Sagittarius South Node, 16-degree Atlantis, number 1198, and then amazingly, opposition to that is a 16-degree Wuhan, which is something that we as Galactic Shaman Astrologers have been tracking since last year in February. So a year ago, we started watching Wuhan. Now, what's happening now is there are actually several lawsuits happening in Vermont that I've been alerted to. And in many of these people's videos, they've asked us to do our own research. So I'm going to give you some of the research that I've been doing so that you can do this research yourself. It's very important. So I have both a video of Dr. Anthony Fauci that I'm going to play for you, and you can find it at TWIV 641 COVID-19 with Dr. Anthony Fauci. And this is on Vincent Raccaniello. And this is a regular virology podcast that has been going on for years. And it's from Columbia University, and there's some very important information that all of us need to follow up on. Healthcare providers, mothers and fathers, interested persons in the community, because what we're finding is that there's false positives out there that may be creating a scenario that is actually hurting humanity tremendously right now. So the other thing that I want to address with this grand square is the people who are asking, like, how did we get to where we are right now? And there's 5 different things I want you to reflect on in your life of how did we get to where we are right now, where we're not actively questioning things, where there's a lot more fear than critical thinking. So one is, I was an educator for many years, and I was the Vermont Agricultural Educator of the Year in 2001 and 2002, and I've also been a licensed New York State teacher, but my background is in humanistic education. And what we learned was that we really need to teach people both cooperative learning and critical thinking. And when I was a history teacher, there was this need to make it A, B, C, or D. A, B, C, or D. You have to choose from one of the options that are pre-selected. Now, I'm not going to go into that very long. It's very clear that if all of us are educated without any critical thinking, and that only A, B, C, or D has to be correct, the experience of thinking outside of what's presented is impossible. So basically, education has created the scenario that we have right now where people are not willing to research. They're willing to believe the media. And I have plenty of videos of the media with Project Mockingbird saying the exact same thing, no matter what news station all over the world, because they're owned, again, by 6 individuals, which is connected to the pharmaceutical companies who are their major advertisers nonstop. So what I want you to do is don't get into the pre-selected answers of A, B, C, or D. Okay, start doing your own research and helping others do their own research, because when I called my local health department, my state health department, my local hospital, and the Dartmouth lab, I have the recording. None of them even know what cycle the PCR test is running at, but all of them could agree that the rapid antigen test was false and also the blood serum test was false. And how many people have been tested with that, you know, and been given a false positive? The other thing I want you to be able to do is, because there's so much censorship right now, I want you to be able to access and actually print the scientific reports that are out there right now. And this external peer review of the RT-PCR test by 22 different scientists, and this is a peer-reviewed about 10 major scientific flaws at the molecular and methodological levels, with consequences for positive, false results. And you can get that at www.researchgate.net, publication 346-483-715. researchgate.net, publication 346-483-715. And this is an abstract with 22 different scientists peer-reviewed with the flaws of this PCR test. So you have to do your research. You can't just go like, oh yes, A, oh yes, B, oh yes, C, oh yes, D, because that's what's presented out there. Because clearly the Department of Health and the lab technicians don't even know what cycle this test is, and they don't even know what this peer-reviewed science is. So you have to do this research, because they were educated in that same system of just believe A, B, C, or D. The next thing is there's a media hypnosis happening right now that the psychologists explain that if you hear it again and again and again, and you read it in the newspapers and you see it on signs, that then it becomes a belief. There's a belief. And it's actually a hypnosis belief. But then if you look outside of that and try to actually see physical experience of what's actually happening, how many sick people do you actually see, and really look with your eyes, then you will see that also what is being said in the newspapers is like hysteria and fear and scarcity and continued lockdowns and things like that are not what's actually happening. Because here in Vermont, we're looking at on Route 4 coming from some of the big ski areas, all the states, everybody's here in Woodstock, Vermont. We got Massachusetts, we got New Jersey, we got New York, we got Connecticut, we got Nevada, we got New Mexico, we've got people at the gas stations from all over the place. And there is not some really scary pandemic. I mean, I just have to tell you that they're not obeying the quarantines. They're coming here skiing for the day and they're going home, or they're staying at a condo and they're going home. So you have to look at the actual physical evidence out there, because media is proven to be like a hypnosis technique, where they keep repeating the same thing and again and again. And in education, if you hear it 3 times, it starts to be like a learned information. Okay? Then we have to get off our dependency on the government or the pharmaceutical agencies as telling the truth. And there's so much information about that, folks. I mean, I don't know what to say about this, but I mean, if you just look at the lawsuits against Johnson and Johnson and Pfizer, like, how could you ever trust them? You know, do your research. Look at the lawsuits out there. And I've already said since 1986, the law is that you cannot hold a vaccine producer liable. So there is no liability. So why is there no liability to something as experimental as this? The other thing that is being discussed right now, so like number 4, is our trauma bond to authority and what is gaslighting. So gaslighting basically is a psychological phenomenon in which there's a lot of conflicting information and you can't get to the bottom of any of it. You cannot speak to your legislators. You cannot go to your courthouse. You cannot, you know, even when I call the Dartmouth lab, they have no idea what I'm talking about with this scientific peer-reviewed document. So gaslighting is a psychological technique of causing people to question their own sanity. Just going, gosh, what I'm seeing out there is not what they're saying in the media. There's just tons of visitors here in Vermont. And they're at the gas station, they're driving down the road, they're getting pizza at Ramonto's. You know, we were taking a walk in Bridgewater and like nonstop cars from out of state were getting their pizza in Bridgewater at Ramonto's. Like, it's just not what we understand to be like the scary situation. So that's called gaslighting. And then it's broadcast across like all media platforms. It's in the Wall Street Journal, it's on the news. NBC has even decided to be like the guidepost to human behavior and saying that people who don't wear masks are sociopaths. Like, when did NBC become the guidepost to human behavior? But they can say that, and that gets into people's subconscious thought pattern, and they're looking around very suspiciously. But as I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, we went to the official statement from our governor that says masks are only suggested if you cannot maintain social distancing inside or outside, which means that if you go to the Woodstock post office, it says masks are suggested because that's a federal building. And as a federal building, it cannot make up baloney about how this is a law. It's not a law, it's a mandate, it's a suggestion. And so if you go into the post office and you cannot maintain physical distance, like there's a big long line, then it's suggested. So if someone comes right up to you and says, you need to be wearing your mask, you need to say, you need to step away from me. I have a mask and I would like to social distance. So know your rights. Think, people. Think about what this is becoming. In Idaho, they've taken down the mandates and people are still wearing the muzzle. Like, why? Why, people? And, you know, there have been some really good videos in different states, also the governor of South Dakota, and how she really worked very hard to keep businesses open and make sure children went to school, because she knew that social interaction in the business or in the school was necessary for basic human wellness. Okay, so you can listen to her video. She just spoke recently. And there's one last thing that a lot of people are talking about, and it's basically a meme like this. Why did you fear the witches when the witches were being burned instead of the ones who were burning them? And that is one of those basic psychological things, okay? When we lost 9 million people who were burned or hung or drowned as witches, those were people who stood outside of society and got blamed for the ills of society. And why did we fear those witches instead of the people who were burning them? That's something very important in the psyche right now. I also have had clients say, that they don't want to say anything because they fear the government. Like, just that, like that you fear the government is a really important indicator, because the government is our employees. They are our employees. We pay them. We pay taxes for their responsibility to us. And that you fear the government and you fear posting something or saying something or standing up, I mean, that is just big red light to me, folks, that this has all gotten backwards, okay? That we fear those people who are supposed to be representing us and taking care of us, and that we fear saying anything because we might be sued by our governor. And that is what happens. That is what is happening in Newport, Vermont, okay? A business was shut down and is being sued by the governor. So like the governor is suing a business rather than protecting the person who is an upstanding citizen. Oh, very interesting that we now fear our government. That's really important, folks. And that is part of the grand square crisis that's in the sky right now. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up to 2-minute mark so that you can hear kind of the introduction and the questioning on this video. And I'm going to play this video because a lot of videos are disappearing right now, and I'm going to be recording this one on my laptop to make sure that if it does disappear, that this is not part of what we're squabbling about later, saying, oh, that was 7 months ago. Oh, that was false information. Well, has the science changed that quickly in 7 months? If it has, gosh, we have no idea what we're doing out there, do we, testing all these people if the science is going to change every 7 months, which is what Gail at the health department said to me this morning. Oh, well, that's from 7 months ago. And I'm going, well, if we're changing the science every 7 months, we're in trouble. So just listen in.
Intelligent guess that it is almost a very large majority of it is the standard aerosol, whereas if you stay, the standard droplet, which is if you stay 6 feet or more away, it's unlikely that the droplet will reach you. But I would not rule out the possibility that there is a degree of aerosol, the extent of which I don't know. Surfaces, we know it can stay on surfaces, hard enamel, steel, plastic, more than corrugated cotton material and things like that. You know, a study that was done by Vincent Munster from the Rocky Mountain Labs showed about, 48 to 72 hours on surfaces, but that's PCRable. We're not so sure if it's replication competent. So that's another thing that's kind of up in the air. Yeah. So no firm information on what we're talking about.
So do you have any feeling for like the relative contribution of direct droplet transmission and surface mediated, fomite mediated?
I don't, but if you look at the circumstances of when crowds are together, you would imagine it's mostly droplet. And I'm sure if somebody coughs into the hand and opens a door, if somebody comes 15 minutes later and opens the same door, that, it's a good chance you're going to get transmission. But I would think that it's, again, if you compare surface to droplet, I would go with droplet predominant.
It seems to me this is important because it speaks to the effectiveness of masks.
Right, exactly.
All right, there have been a number of reports of patients who shed viral RNA for weeks, as determined by PCR. It doesn't seem to be infectious virus. And the real question is, are they a threat for transmission? And I'm wondering if you think we could use a cutoff of viral loads determined by PCR to say this patient is no longer infectious, can go home, can go to a nursing facility. Because right now the physicians are really having a hard time with that.
Right. Again, a good question. And what is now sort of evolving into a bit of a standard that if you get a cycle threshold of 35 or more, that the chances of it being replication competent are minuscule. So that if somebody, and we have patients, and it's very frustrating for the patients as well as for the physicians. Somebody comes in and they repeat their PCR, and it's like 37 cycle threshold. But you almost never can culture virus from a 37 threshold cycle. So I think if somebody does come in with 37, 38, even 36, you got to say, it's just dead nucleotides, period.
Yeah, because as you know, we can't easily culture infectious virus. You don't have a BSL-3 lab everywhere.
Exactly.
So is the threshold cycle is reporting that a pretty standard practice in doing a diagnosis now, rather than just positive or negative? Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, if when you go in, when I get my test, it's negative. When someone comes in and it's positive, they don't give them the threshold until you go back and ask for it.
Okay, so you just heard it. You have to go back and ask for the threshold. You just heard it, okay? So if it is above 35, then the results of this being accurate are minuscule, okay? So you just heard it. And I have the recording of all the conversations that I had this morning with the Dartmouth lab, and that people across the board, from the health department, from the respiratory testing at the hospital to the Dartmouth lab, they do not even know what cycle this is being tested at. So you need to use your critical thinking, folks, because it is quite likely and very possible that everything that has been tested since last March, particularly on the rapid antigen test, on the blood serum test, and on anything that's above 35 cycles, was false. And you need to think about that, because if we're just doing the wrong science and locking down humanity, that is a crime against humanity. This is a very tricky video to make for me, because people want to believe. They want to believe. They almost like are here to experience something so wrong. They want to be this scared. And I'm just really wondering, why do you all want to be locked down? Why do you want to fear this false evidence? Why do you want to turn in your neighbor for not wearing a mask? Because, Dr. Fauci just said, as long as you stay 6 feet away, the droplets really can't get you. Okay, and there are a lot of people with medical reasons like anxiety and asthma or COPD or, and that's HIPAA confidential. Like, you should not be asking them, why are you not? Why are you not? I mean, that's not even your business. That's confidential. So, folks, because I'm thinking a lot about the elders, and I see them going to the library, and it's icy and it's slippery, and they're trying to wear their mask and they can't breathe and they're scared. And I'm thinking, I'm very worried about that this is all false. And there are some Vermonters who are suing the governor and Dr. Levine right now. So you need to do your research, okay? Don't believe me. I'm an astrologer, but I'm presenting you, and I have a whole list of calls that I have been recording with names of persons in different places who have no idea. Why do they have no idea? They should know what cycle we're testing at. Okay? Do your research. Bye-bye.